Today I thought we would do a little yarn review, and the yarn we're going to be reviewing is this. It's a paper yarn, something a little bit different. It's actually a 4mm yarn. I purchased this online from a UK retailer. I will post a link in the description below, but I thought it'd be fun just to kind of see how it works up, the kind of hooks that I should be using for something like this, and then kind of think about the practicalities of how I could actually use this in a project. I've seen people use these for things like lampshades, things that have some kind of translucency to them, and they've worked really well. Obviously the paper sort of makes the light shine through in quite a nice and fun way. I don't know if you can see, but it is quite fine. It's got a bit of a shine to it as well. I think it's actually going to be quite horrible to crochet with. So let's start. I bought a selection of hooks actually, because I thought, even though it's quite fine, I thought because of the flatness of the yarn, it might be difficult to kind of catch. So I was thinking I'd probably start by trying to use a 3mm. Obviously if you bought a different size paper yarn, you'd want to adapt that, but for this, let's kind of start with that. Okay, so I'll just start with my slip knot. Knot feels quite tight actually. Oh no, it's not, it's quite loose. No, it's not too bad. Okay, so pop my hook in, tightens up nicely, and just pull them out so I'm not. Okay, and let's see what chain is like. Okay, so it's quite horrible to hold actually, like it doesn't sort of wrap around your fingers properly. I think this yarn is actually probably more traditionally used for something like weaving. I think you might have more success if you were using it sort of on a loom and compacting it like that, rather than trying to like play with it in a really sort of fiddly way. It is quite fiddly. It's not too bad. It's quite hard to maintain your stitch size. I find my tension is all over the shop. It's not too bad. It doesn't feel like I'm holding it very tightly in my hand. I don't feel like I've got like a good grip on it. I'm a little bit scared of almost ripping it. You can kind of see how that works up as a chain. It pretty much, there's no sort of like bounce to it. It's pretty much, once you make the shape, that's the shape you're in. I'm finding it really annoying to hold like that. Okay, now let's try a single crochet, US term, obviously. Going backwards. See, I mean, I feel like this is making quite large holes for a 3mm hook. It's quite hard to grab. Also, it's weirdly difficult to like find the holes, like where the paper's shiny, you just kind of slip a little bit all over the place. Although I don't really want to like poo-poo this. I don't want to sound like I'm being super negative about the yarn. I actually think it's really like, it's really interesting. So I don't want to sound like I'm poo-pooing because I'm mad. It's just quite difficult to maintain. I think it's going to take some practice. I'm going to do a few rows. And once I've done that, I'll come back and you can kind of have a look at what it looks like a bit more built up. Okay, so I've done a few rows now, and you can kind of start to see how this is building up. It's definitely not uniform. The holes are quite large as well. I think if I was to purchase this again, I would definitely get a thicker paper weight. I would, maybe something that was, actually no, maybe not paper weight, maybe I'd keep the same sort of level of translucency, but just get like a chunkier paper. So instead of a 4mm, maybe I'd want to go for like a 12. I mean, almost keep this same size hook, just to build up a bit more density, because this is starting to look a little bit like, almost like, I don't know, it feels really like skeletal. I mean, it's kind of fun if you want to play with kind of layering. I guess it's got some fun properties to it. And then you can see the stitches along the top. It is quite tricky finding the holes sometimes, but the absolute worst thing is the way it wraps around your hand. So, I mean, obviously it depends how you hold your yarn in your tension hand, but for me, I always wrap it around my little finger, and that is something I'm finding quite tricky. So I'm just pop my hook back in, because where the paper's got no weight to it, it doesn't sort of take, gravity doesn't really take it, so it sort of jumps up a little bit all over the shop, and it kind of gets caught up in your hand a bit. So yeah, you can kind of see how it builds up. One thing I have tried with this yarn before is dyeing it, and that is one thing that is actually really effective. It takes really well to natural dyes, so things like vegetable skins, onion skins, avocado skins, did I say onion skins? Did I say that? I can't remember. Turmeric is also really effective. And that is one massive bonus for something like this, is that, you know, you're not going to be wearing it, I assume. So you don't need to worry about kind of fixing a dye in. So if you're wanting to play with natural dyes and textile, it's a really sort of fun way of doing that, and playing with the way that the paper absorbs the colours. I'll pop some photos in so you can kind of see what I'm on about. Now see, this is where it's difficult, the holes get small. Yeah, highly recommend that. I think I might try doing a double crochet on this next row, so let's give that a go, see how that builds up. Maybe that builds up nicer. Let's see. Ooh, oh, that's tricky. It just goes so thin, it just turns into like a little scrunched up line. Ooh, I think that's nicer. That's much nicer. Okay, I'm going to do a few rows of this, and then I will come back. We can kind of compare how the shapes look. Okay, so this is a couple of rows done with a US double. I actually prefer it. I think it looks a lot more kind of delicate, although the holes are much more uneven than the single crochet. I don't know, I think it looks quite... Right, there's some interesting kind of white contrast there and some interesting tones, which I think maybe a bit more varied than the single. But yeah, there we kind of have it. This is just a couple of little tests for a sustainable yarn. I think it's really important to try and find these kind of yarns, and this is something I'm hoping to kind of start looking at more. Different materials, different things that we can use to kind of make our little projects a bit more interesting. And yeah, if this is something you think you're going to use, if you think this is something that is going to be useful for you, or maybe you've used it in the past and you've got some tips for me to stop it looking so scraggly, yeah, please leave a little comment and let me know. I love hearing from you guys about your projects. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely day.